Well, let me give you my view of what happened January the 6th. And we're here. We saw what happened. It was a violent insurrection for the purpose of trying to prevent the peaceful transfer of power after a legitimately certified election from one administration to the next. That's what it was. With regard to the suggestion that the RNC should be in the business of picking and choosing Republicans who ought to be supported, traditionally the view of the national party committees is that we support all members of our party, regardless of their positions on some issues.
Do you have confidence in her, Ronna McDaniel, chairwoman of the committee?
I do, but the issue is whether or not the RNC should be sort of singling out members of our party who may have different views from the majority. That's not the job of the RNC.
Okay, so that is Mitch McConnell, leader of the Republicans in the Senate, responding to a couple of different things that have been going on in the GOP recently. Obviously, the censure of people like Representative Kinzinger and Cheney, but also the RNC coming out with that statement that like, nah, January 6th was great, totally legitimate, it was the best. So he disagrees with those. So David, how much credit do you give Mitch McConnell for these positions?
I don't think this is exactly a profile in courage, and it's the same thing that I think we saw with Mike Pence, who's one of the more conservatives that are out there. The polling in the Republican Party has shifted dramatically over the last 6 months. Maybe it's because of the January 6th committee, all the revelations that have come out, all the revelations that are coming, but there's blood in the water surrounding Donald Trump. And if you go back to say October 2020, it was something like 55% of the Republicans identified first with Donald Trump and the party second. And it was like 35% identified first as Republicans. That's now flipped. Now it's only about 35% that identify first as with Donald Trump. 55% identify first with the Republican Party. Republican leaders see this. They see Donald Trump still having a very committed base, but a base that is getting smaller. And for Mitch McConnell, for Mike Pence who wants to run for president, not having Donald Trump at the top of the party would be a godsend for them. And they finally see that they've got some political cover because of how people feel about Donald Trump to go ahead and distance themselves from the president. So I don't think that's certainly a profile in courage at all. Mitch McConnell is still going to hedge his bets, but he's certainly seeming more comfortable to distance himself from Donald Trump.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the poll, the change in the polls that you referenced there, I'd seen that too, and it's definitely interesting. I don't think it got as much recognition as I think it deserved, but it is coming at the end of a year which represented the least Donald Trump we've experienced for about half a decade. Do you think that number could just as easily reverse itself once we get towards presidential campaign season and Donald Trump is suddenly popping up every single day?
You know what? I don't think so, for the simple reason that I have a feeling that the January 6th committee is going to dominate more of the headlines than Donald Trump can sort of drive the headlines. I mean, if you go back to Donald Trump's first campaign, of course, every time he would open his mouth and he had these incredibly engaging and sort of fun to watch, fun being the strange word, in terms of his rallies, and he could just sort of control the media and everybody gave him a lot of attention. Now the media is not giving him so much attention, but they are giving a lot of attention to what the January 6th committee is doing. And the committee is likely going to have subpoenas for Ivanka Trump, for Sean Hannity. There's all sorts of indications now that Donald Trump was far more involved in organizing and planning and encouraging people to storm the Capitol. And as that starts to come out, as that narrative starts to be sort of occupy the media space, I think a lot of Republicans, they want to just move on from January 6th, whether they feel it was justified or not. They don't want to talk about it. And the more that it is talked about and Donald Trump is associated with it, I think that causes Donald Trump's numbers to sort of further go down. Again, it doesn't eliminate Donald Trump, but I think it provides some cover for a lot of Republicans.
Yeah, and maybe that's as simple as it is, that Mitch McConnell feels a little bit freed up to identify it for what it actually is. It was a violent insurrection. I know I forget, it was one of the idiots on the right was coming out today, it was like, no, you can't call it that because it had no chance of succeeding. Okay, well, we're not responsible for the fact that they're incompetent and that their eyes are bigger than their stomachs. Like, okay, you failed, you still wanted to do it. Attempted murder is still bad. I'm not a lawyer, but I believe that's basically how it works.
Well, Mitch McConnell also sees that he doesn't want Senate Republicans to get murdered politically. And he's looking at, well, he might be able to pick up enough seats to be able to become the Senate majority leader again. But the polling also suggested, to the extent that the political world is focused on Donald Trump and not focused on the Democrats. Republicans want voters to think only about Joe Biden, think only about inflation, think about the things that Joe Biden has done wrong. Every time that Donald Trump enters the conversation or look back at Donald Trump or January 6th enters the conversation, Republicans feel their possibility of taking control of both the House and the Senate starts to slip away. And that's another reason, Mitch McConnell's also got some moderate Republicans, who are more centrist, who are not exactly Trump supporters, who are also up for re-election. He's trying to protect them as well.
Yeah. Although I do want to add to, him being willing to identify that and saying, hey, let's not necessarily excommunicate our members, just because they agreed with my assessment of what January 6th was. And by the way, that's basically what they've done. The censure resolution he was referring to there says that the RNC shall immediately cease any and all support to Cheney and Kinzinger. Says that they had crossed a line. Okay, well, so he's saying don't do that. But to be fair, while Mitch McConnell does identify January 6th as a violent insurrection, as Sophie pointed out in our production doc, there are a couple of additional facts about Mitch McConnell that you should probably take into account. One is that he's totally fine with all of the Republicans running for office agreeing with the same lies that led to January 6th. He's not saying we need to do a better job of weeding them out or we need to be more supportive of primary challenges to Josh Hawley or Ted Cruz. I mean, they supported the insurrection. So with that, he still supports Donald Trump. Like they're arguing or whatever. But if Donald Trump runs in 2024 and he's the nominee, McConnell is gonna support him. That is just very clear. And despite the fact that he identifies January 6th as having been an insurrection, he has no interest whatsoever in it being investigated. He didn't want the commission that you were just talking about to actually exist. So you're saying it was a violent insurrection, but none of your other actions seem like they would naturally follow from what you've identified. You seem pretty cool with it, even if you might identify it as an insurrection.
Well, and that raises the million-dollar question I'll pose to you, and that is, Mitch McConnell obviously wants to hedge his bets and protect himself just in case Donald Trump wins the nomination and wins the presidency again. Given the sort of war of words between Donald Trump and Mitch McConnell, do you think McConnell is hedging his bet successfully? Do you think that Donald Trump will forget about what he sees as Mitch McConnell crossing him right now, 6 months, a year in the future?
Look, it's an interesting question, but I think we should identify that like forgetting it doesn't function the same way for Trump as it does for other people. Mm-hmm. Like, first of all, I think he's gonna hate Mitch McConnell for the rest of his life, probably. But you say something nice about him, he loves you. You vote against him, he hates. Like it flip-flops so quickly. Like there's no relationship inertia that builds up. No like foundation. It's all what was the last thing you did to me. Which is not how most people function. Most people like you're willing to cut them some slack based on your past relationship or vice versa. So look, I think he's going to hate Mitch McConnell. In this case, even if Mitch McConnell delivers for him in terms of legislation in some future presidency. But I'm also not entirely sure how much it matters from Mitch McConnell's point of view, unless it leads to Donald Trump supporting someone else who would become majority leader in a future Republican majority, which I haven't heard much talk about that. Do you think that that's a consequence that Mitch McConnell should be worrying about?
No, and Mitch McConnell's got a much better control in terms of the centrists have much more influence, of course, in the Senate than they do in the House. So I think Mitch McConnell doesn't fear that there's any sort of leadership challenge. John Cornyn, the Republican from Texas, is very loyal to him, not to Donald Trump. So I don't think McConnell sees that there are any Trumpsters like a Senator Johnson or somebody who would have enough support to be able to challenge him. I think where McConnell may be a little concerned is he also needs control of the House in order for his agenda in the Senate to get through. And he recognizes that there are a number of Republican districts where it takes a more moderate Republican or a centrist sort of candidate to be successful. And he doesn't want to block them off. He doesn't want them to be primaried by the Trumpsters, who then make it a more difficult battle in order to win the seat come November.
For more political news, breakdowns, interviews, stories of activism, and me trying my hardest to care about the occasional big celebrity news story, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/The Damage Report. And you can ring the bell wherever it is so you don't miss anything.